Thanksgiving meals are always delicious, but not necessarily healthy for moms. And well, for new moms, you know, it can be difficult to decide which foods are okay to give your children and which ones you should avoid. Here to help us answer those questions is Krista Beer, dietitian with Beaumont Hospital. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, let's talk about first, you know, as a new mom myself, I always have questions about what can I give my daughter. She's at that age where basically she can eat anything, but with Thanksgiving, you kind of want to be cautious. So what should we look for as far as things that we can definitely put on their plate?
Sure. So Thanksgiving is a great time to be a good example of what you can eat. It's a family dinner, everybody sits down together. That's the best way to be an example for your children. So love Thanksgiving. The best way to kind of think of the plate is portion size. Think small. So think salad plate. And then I brought in a little demonstration here. So you want to think about a quarter of the plate to be your protein, a quarter of the plate to be your starches, and then half the plate to be vegetables. Okay, and this is a salad plate size. So, you know, thinking maybe a teaspoon, tablespoon of these things.
You've got, and all of these are okay. We've got like a green bean casserole, it looks like. The corn, stuffing. So young kids can have stuffing?
They can. You want to watch how it's made. You know, everybody makes it a little differently. So what we're worried about with little children is choking hazards. So really anything larger than the size of a pea can be a choking hazard for a child. Pea is a good example too because that size can be you know, a choking hazard. Round, you're always thinking like the hot dog, nothing round, okay? So cut things in long strips and then smaller than a pea for children.
And now when it comes to the turkey,
yes,
there's always the big question. As adults, it's like, well, what tastes better, the white meat or the dark meat? What should we be giving the children?
You know, either way is fine. The dark meat is a little higher in fat. When, you know, a 1-year-old, small children, Thanksgiving's not the time to be watching real carefully on those types of things. And then a good rule of thumb always in parenting is that the parent decides what, where, and when the child eats, and the child decides how much and whether they eat. And that helps them develop satiety cues for later on in life to help with pushing away obesity and things like that.
Absolutely. Well, and you mentioned the things that we should avoid as far as choking hazards, but what else with, perhaps if we don't know if they have allergies yet. You're introducing children to so many different types of food on Thanksgiving.
Yes. So the American Academy of Pediatrics has changed their tune a little bit, and they're not as cautious with the introduction of foods. But, you know, you're always a little nervous if you haven't tried things like peanuts, peanut butter, things like that. Almonds, you know, you'll find in your green bean casserole. Sometimes there's nuts in pecan pie or you know the casseroles, the sweet potato pie, things like that, or sweet potato casserole.
I make mine with that, with the pecans on top.
Yeah, so just be aware, you know, maybe ask and find out how people made things or taste it yourself first. A couple other things to look for are honey in children under 1.
Not good?
No, their digestive system is too young, and we can handle the possible spores that might be in there of botulinum that could cause botulism. But an infant's intestines aren't developed enough to do that.
So avoid the honey. And then obviously any nuts if you're not sure about a food allergy. Now what about the breastfeeding mom? You know, they usually want to perhaps indulge a little bit on the holiday, but what's okay, what should you avoid? I myself struggled with that last year as well.
Well, there's a couple of things. So for one, you know, if you're pregnant, so before the breastfeeding, no alcohol. It's always discouraged, okay? And a place to look for that is actually where bourbon is added. So bourbon in pies, things like that, we go, oh, it all cooks off. It actually takes 3 hours to cook off 100%.
Good to know.
The good news is in about 10 minutes, 50% is gone. So, you know, a small amount.
If you make the mistake of indulging a little bit and then you find out later from grandma that you put bourbon in it.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
It will wear off, But
for breastfeeding moms, the milk will pass alcohol on to the baby. It takes about 30 to 90 minutes for it to pass on, depending on how full your stomach is. So Thanksgiving, you've got that buffer. And then it takes up to 3 hours to be out of the milk. If you're really concerned, there are test strips that you can get at Babies R Us, Walgreens, Target, and actually test the alcohol content if you're pumping and giving a bottle.
Wonderful.
Well,
great. All great advice. Thank you so much, Krista. I appreciate
Thank you for having me.
Dietitian with Beaumont Hospital.